Hello, hello, hello. This is Cortina Jackson, and you are listening to What's on Cortina Jackson's Mind. You guys, I am here with quite an iconic genius, comedic genius. He is a phenomenal comedian, very funny, he's an author, he's a speaker, he does it all. And I have the privilege of connecting with him and having him on my show. You all, it's none other than Mr. Darryl DMilitant Littleton. How are you, sir?
Good, good. Thanks for having me on the show, Cortina. That was the great. You missed everything but calling me a legend. And I usually get that in introductions now, and I figured out why. The way you become a legend is you just outlive real legends. That's all. You just stick around long enough, and they look at the sheet and say, "Well, he's the only one left. We got to call somebody a legend. So why not him?" That's how I did. I was looking at, and speaking of legends, I was looking at that picture you have behind you, and I love that. That's a great picture. Who did that?
Yes, thank you so much. This particular painting is from well-renowned artist, Mr. Don Cinconi. He has paintings all over Europe, in the United States. He's quite extraordinary, and he's blessed me to be able to have his paintings and kind of display those. So yeah, he's just a wonderful, wonderful man.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
I can see them loving him in Europe. Yeah, they got a different sensibility out there. You know.
Oh,
they appreciate. I think they appreciate art, period, across the board, a lot more than we do.
You know, it does appear that way. It seems to be that way. And so, you know, these things are catching on here in the United States as well. But gosh, I certainly hope so, because we're truly missing out on some greats when we don't explore those things. So now back to you, because you're quite phenomenal yourself. So, Mr. Littleton, I remember you from Def Comedy Jam from way back in the day. And it was so cool. Yes, you had your beret. I think you had on fatigues. It was just so cool, because that was back in the day when I was wearing my beret, and I just thought, oh man, this is going to be phenomenal. I'm cool like he's cool. And what I loved about you then was that you came out a heavy hitter. You were fearless. You weren't afraid to talk about anything. And so what I really enjoyed most about that performance was that you took a chance. You talked about everything from race. You talked about politics. You talked sexuality. Doesn't matter. Nothing is off limits with you. So I love it. And so I'm sure you're going to delve into your style with us a little more. But first, for those who do not know you, and if they don't, please, you all,
shame on them.
Exactly. Get to know.
Yeah.
But introduce us to who you are.
Okay. I am a lot of slashes. I'm a lot of hyphens. I'm a comedian. I'm a writer. I'm a producer. I'm an author. I'm a preservationist of comedy. I'm a historian. Every now and then they let me act and do all kind of other stuff, voiceovers and all that. It all really started. It's funny. I am in a California home that I grew up in. My mother's old, so I had to come and, kind of take care of some stuff. And I was cleaning out the garage. I had a couple of friends over. Comedy competition when I was like 9 or 10 years old. No, I was 10 years old when I did a comedy and won. And I had a ribbon and all that. And I wasn't thinking about being a comedian then. What happened was they had a talent show, and I wanted to win a talent show, but I didn't have any talent. I was only 10 years old. But I figured anybody could be funny. That's not correct. But I had an idea of how to be funny. And I had a friend of mine, and I said, well, why don't we go up there? And this is way back in the day, and I know I'm dating myself, but they had a show called Winchell Mahoney, Jerry Mahoney, Winchell Mahoney, and this guy, he had dummies and puppets, and he had a dummy named Knucklehead Smith. So I said, why don't you be the ventriloquist? I'll be the dummy. No matter what you ask me, I'll say something funny. And we didn't have an end, we didn't have a beginning, we had a middle. So he just asked me stuff and I would just act like a dummy flailing around. So the kids were laughing. And then he asked me something. I didn't have an end, and I could feel at 10 years old, the act was kind of stretching. You know, it was kind of time to wrap it up. Right. So he asked me a question, and I said, throw me. And he pushed me off to the side. So he threw his dummy, and I rolled off stage, and we won.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was the first comedy thing I did. After that, I didn't even think about comedy for, I don't know, ages. I got into music. I started playing clarinet, and I did about a year on that. That really wasn't my thing. I saw somebody play a trumpet and fell in love with a trumpet, loved the sound of it. Started playing trumpet at age 11. I played until I was 22. During that period of time, I played in a funk band. It was called Creative Sounds of Soul. We called it CSS. We didn't tour. We did a lot of shows in Southern California. You know, we were one of those Southern California bands, but we won a competition in one of those high school competitions. And then they decided, well, we're going to give these guys their own own assembly. So they gave us a Friday assembly, and we did a whole lot of Ohio Player and Kool and the Gang, Shaka Khan and Rufus songs and all that. And so we were a funk band. That's what I was going to be. I was going to be a funk trumpet player. That was the plan. I was going to go over to Europe and play. That's why I love that picture behind you. I can tell whoever did that picture, they probably love it in Europe. Anyway, we could talk about that later. Bottom line is, I thought I was going to go over to Europe and make my way and just play funk and, you know, have Parisian girls and all that other fun stuff. It did not work out that way. I went to a music camp in 1976, and I was a good funk player. But then I went to a music camp in 76, and you had kids from, it was University of Kansas, Jayhawks. Had kids from all over the country, and which meant you had white kids who'd been playing trumpet maybe longer than me and were a little bit more proficient. And so it's like, okay, I'm gonna have to work on some of this. So I came back to California. I'd been gone for 6 weeks. In a 6-week period of time, the band that I was in had broken up and rebanded as a combo. So we had like 9 members. I got back, it was like a 4-member combo, and I was not in it. And yeah, that's what happened. That's the music business, baby. It's out there, man. So I saw my limitations in music and all that, and I kind of figured I'm an only child, so I have no problem without the team participation having to worry about what if somebody don't show up. If I show up, it'll all be good. So that's how I ended up music in that organized sense, because nobody wants to hear just a soloist unless you're backed by a band. Ain't nobody just hiring a trumpet player just come. I played taps one time when I was like 11 12 years old. A guy came looking for an old guy, military had died, and they needed somebody to play taps. The first time I got paid in any kind of performance at all. I made $50 playing taps for this old guy, and it was very cool. My dad took me down there. They had came to a music school I was part of at night, and they said, we need somebody. And, you know, the other guys, they were much better than me. And these dudes were older. I was like in my freshman year in high school. And junior high, I was in junior high. And they were like, we don't want to do that. I said, I'll do it. They didn't say anything about money. I had no idea it was for money. I just like, I'll go. And so I went and I played taps, and they gave me $50. And my dad was like, see, they got to thank him and blah, 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 because he was ex-military. And so that was cool. My dad died when I was 18. I talk about him a lot because I really love the guy. Everything, DMilitant kind of came from him, so I have to give that the credit. He raised me on Final Call. He wasn't officially Muslim, but he believed everything the Muslims were talking about. He had the Final Call where people might remember this. You had a snake, and it had a white man's head on the top. It was raw. Yeah, it was raw. So I came up on that kind of stuff, you know, white man's the devil. Yeah. And, you know, after a while, you know, it's not literally the devil, but there are devilish things that go on. So listen to Malcolm X albums, a lot of Malcolm X. Used to listen to a lot of Dick Gregory coming up. So it was kind of a natural thing. But at the same time, his thing was get your grades together, be tight and all that. So based on that, I always had like straight A's, B's. If not, there's going to be problems. He didn't mind whooping me. He did it a lot. I think he enjoyed it. But, and then when it got to the point where I had built up an immunity to whoopings, he whooped me one last time. Yeah, well, which is going to happen. I mean, you can whoop a black kid 3 or 4 times a week. Eventually, that hide is going to get tough. They're going to figure out how to put a book back there, how to angle it or whatever. And he told me, okay, well, I know how. He said, so it don't hurt no more?
Yeah.
Don't worry, we'll be right back. Do you see me?
I do.
All right. I don't know why I do not see you right.
Rolling.
My dad used to whoop me. I mean, most black dudes, if they had a dad around back then, you got whooped by him. And my dad I built up an immunity. So what happened was, one day he said, oh, it don't hurt no more. Take your clothes off. So I had to strip butt naked. And he popped me, and I went, flying across the room. I went running away. And so now he's chasing me with a belt, because I thought I could do like, this was before Denzel, but I thought I could be tough and the one tear down, and I could, no, it wasn't happening. I would run around the room, and it took a wild swing, and the belt buckle hit me in the family jewels. Oh. And so every guy that just heard that said, oh, and he said, oh, and that was the last time he gave me a whooping. But when people ask me why my voice is so high, let the mystery end.
I see.
So now you guys know what happened to me. So anyway, but I still love the guy because, he gave me certain principles of being a man. And when I got into comedy, they would ask me to do certain things that they will ask a lot of performers to do certain things. Now, there's usually a category of 3. Either they want you to do something like put on a dress for emasculation. They want you to compromise your sexuality, no matter what that sexuality is or the boundaries of it. They want you to compromise and go outside of those boundaries. And then the other one is they want you to coon, downgrade your race, put your race down, whether you're black or whatever. Put your race down, and then we'll let you into the club. Well, mine was cooning. Right. I was asked to put on a dress one time, and I said no. They wanted me to play gay one time. I had no problem playing gay, but it was the way they wanted me to do it. And I thought it was like a coon version of being gay. It was kind of like way too far. It wasn't like you're a homosexual. You're out there on the parade, and you got the glitter, and you're listening to Yanni and all that. And it's like, nobody's gonna buy that from me. And I'm not a bad actor at all, but I just don't have the litheness of it. The way they wanted it played, Crying Game, Jay Davidson, whoever played the Crying Game, it would have worked for that guy, or the guys on Pose or whatever. It just wasn't gonna work. So they wanted me to coon. I had done. I decided to go into comedy. When I was like 19 years old, I went up to the Comedy Store, and Mitzi Shore saw me, and I was young. I was doing jokes about Gary Coleman. That was. So I stopped doing comedy because I felt depressed about the fact, okay, well, you're funny, but you really don't have any material. And I realized I'm only 19 years old, really haven't lived enough to be able to compete with some of the guys who were there. And I'm talking about, you did have Pryor there. You did have Billy Crystal there. You had a lot of like established comedians who it's like, I ain't lived a life enough. So I came back into comedy when I got married at age 28. I started being my wife. Her dad was a deadbeat. I really shouldn't say that, but it's true. And her mother was very cool, so she had to move her mother in. And we had just gotten married, and I guess my problem was we had just gotten married, and so we were newlyweds. And her mother moving in meant, because she got kicked out of her place, it meant a stop to just walking around naked. And I'm not talking about me and my wife. I'm talking about my mother-in-law, because that's why they kicked her out of her retirement home. She just walking around naked, clothes all off, stuff just hanging all over the place. She was out. She was off the chain. But so anyway, I had to get out of the house at night. So it's like, okay, well, let me just go ahead and find an excuse, because I can't sit around the sewing circle, you know. And I wasn't doing music anymore. And you just can't say, hey, I just want to go hang out. I want to get on. But comedy, on the other hand, has to be done at night. You have to work out. So that's how I got into comedy. I wanted to get away from my mother-in-law and her daughter at night, who was my wife at the same time. But it's funny about you women sometimes, and I'm going to be stereotypical, because it probably happens to guys too. When you move back in with your parents, or your parents move in with you, you revert to that role. And even though she was my wife, she became her mother's daughter, and more than being my wife. And that's why I had to run out at night. You know, wasn't nothing personal. I like my mother-in-law, but you can't run my house. Nah, I forget what he said. You gonna do what I said. I forget that. So
exactly.
I went back, and eventually I got back to the Comedy Store. I had gotten good by then, before I went back there. And she auditioned me 8 weeks in a row. Normally they don't do that. They'll either pick you up or they won't. They have small audiences because they auditioned on Monday night. Monday Night Football, hardly anybody was there. So, and this is back when we did not have a problem with the NFL.
Right.
One day we won't again. You know what kills me about the NFL protest? And I will say this, that a lot of people are basing it on Colin Kaepernick and his actions, but others are just basing it on the racism of the NFL. Right. And my thing is, this is true, but why did you just now discover the NFL was racist? In that case, here's the deal. I have not eaten at Carl's Jr. since I was 19 years old, when I found out Carl's Jr., Carl Karcher, contributed to the KKK. I have never eaten there. I've been on the road, and that has been the only place to eat within 15 miles. If they tell me you got to go 15 miles to eat, my stomach could be at my spine, I still go to 15 miles. So I don't want to hear about principle, because for me, protest and boycott has to have an end game. And the people that I talk to with this Colin Kaepernick and the NFL, there is no end game. Because even if he gets a job, they say, well, I still ain't gonna watch football. Well, then just say that. Don't say I'm protesting the NFL, because there's nothing they can do that'll ever make you happy. Stop eating the Taco Bell because they're giving to the Republican Party. Don't eat any more Chick-fil-A. There's so many places you will not be able to buy gas. You will not be able to walk down the street, because every place, everything around you involves racism. If you think Black people, that any organization in this country that built this country that was not Black liked you and thought about you, you're wrong. So let's get past the NFL. And what I don't understand too is, how come we're protesting the NFL, but we're not protesting college ball, only the pro level? What about the NBA? They didn't want the Clippers owner Sterling didn't want Magic Johnson at the goddamn Magic Johnson, the legend. He can't be at you're a Clipper. Are you kidding me? He's a Laker. And one time, when he was a Laker, that was legendary. So, but yet I didn't hear nobody at that time protest the NBA. Oh, that's jacked up. Sterling don't want Magic. Oh, he don't want Black people. We didn't care because we weren't going to Clipper games. But what if Pat Riley had said it when he was coaching the Lakers? Would we have still gone? You see what I'm saying? Right. It's easy to have these bullshit ass protests and boycotts, and then people just slowly fall off. And it all started with civil rights. There was an end game. There was a bus boycott. When the bus company went ahead and did what our demands were, the boycott ended. Civil rights marches, everything. Sitting at the counter. That all had a purpose. It all had a game. It all had an end game. Okay, you guys can sit at the lunch counter now. Sammy Davis Jr. And Frank Sinatra, to his credit, they desegregated Las Vegas. There was a time, any Black act, I'm talking about Harry Belafonte, I'm talking about Dorothy Dandridge, you go to Las Vegas, I don't care who you were, how big you were, you could not walk through the front door of the casino. You could walk through the back door, perform, and take your black ass out of the door. You cannot perform. You're not coming through the front door. You can't gamble. We're not giving you chips. You better not swim in the pool. Everybody saw that movie with Halle Berry playing Dorothy Dandridge. That was real. That was real. They drained the pool because black meat got on that water. Meanwhile, white people are pissing in it all goddamn day long.
Yeah.
So what gets me is, and I don't think it's all white people, but you racists know who you are, and I am talking about you. It's ridiculous that you have the time to take to try to control the lives of others when your time is ticking just like ours. Every single second, you're getting closer to the grave. You got time to make a costume. You got time to go to meetings, to make a world that will never exist. It ain't never gonna happen for you. Because even if you got rid of every minority, now you're gonna look at your own kind. Now you don't like the poor disenfranchised white. Now you don't like the white who may have autism. Now you don't like the white who might have gland problems. You're hateful if you're hateful. It just don't matter who it is.
So true.
So that's my problem with the NFL protests. So anyway, back to the story. That's why we didn't have anybody there for 8 weeks, because everybody was watching the game back in the day.
Right.
Finally, I go to the manager and I said, look, man, how much time am I required to do if I get to the main room? He said, you do about 20 minutes. Dude, I've been coming here for 7 weeks and I've given you 10 new minutes every week. You got 70 minutes from me. She said, well, she wants to see you one more time. Okay, so you're gonna have damn near an hour and a half. Am I ever gonna do an hour and a half here? He said, no. Wow. So why am I the special case? Why me? And he said, you know what, I'll talk to her. And he came back and he said, this is it, this is the last week. She'll either pick you up or she won't. It's like, okay. You know, if after 7 weeks she said, this motherfucker ain't funny enough, that's okay, I'll live. So I do my thing, and afterwards she calls me over and she says, I think you're funny. I love your act. I really do. This is Mitzi Shore I'm talking about, who used to own the Comedy Store. She has departed. I'm not going to get into all that other rest and all that, whatever. The bottom line is, she said to me, she gave my biggest high and low in show business within seconds. And it ain't been that high and that low ever since. She said, I'm going to make you a regular at the Comedy Store and I'm going to push you. That's what every comic wants. This was back in 1991. I can count the number of black comics that were working the Comedy Store. Paul Mooney was there, Irv Burton was there, Finus Henderson was there, Chris Tucker had not set foot in the door, nobody else. Oh yeah, and Charles Cozart was there. 5 brothers besides me. So I was part of that brand. I was breaking the new wave in. And then after saying, I'm gonna push you, she said, I like Whoopsie Woolly. I said, what? I like Whoopsie Woolly. I said, well, what's that? That's what we're gonna call you Whoopsie Woolly. You're gonna be big. No, I can't be Whoopsie Woolly. I said Whoopsie Willie, and she said no, Whoopsie Woolly. You know, like carefree, like that character you do on stage, all happy. And I'm picturing Woolly. You mean like a woolly head nigga who ain't don't have a car? You mean like a dude with a pancake flipper and a rag coming out of his pocket? You want a coon. That's what you want. You want a coon. And I told her right then and then. I didn't use the word coon because I knew she wouldn't get next to that. No, I want to make fun of your people. I knew that's what the goal was. Yeah. Well, I'm not Stephen Fetchit. I'm not West. I'm not Mantan Moreland, and I don't want to do with that shit. But I told her, I said, well, I have a stage name, and it's DMilitant. And she said, yeah, I know. But I like Whoopsie Woolly. I was like, well, can we compromise? She said, I want to put you on a roster, but I said, well, why don't we just call me Darryl Littleton? That's my real name. Why don't we just go with that right now? We'll figure it out later. She said, all right. Your first spot is Sunday night. And this was on Monday, so I'm waiting the whole week. I'm ready to go. I get there Sunday. They used to put a sheet. So I'm looking at the sheet, and I don't see DMilitant at all. So it's like, okay, well, whatever. She says she don't like the name. So I look at the sheet and I don't see Darryl Littleton. I don't see that either. So it's like, wait a goddamn minute. I went to the bathroom and I came back. Oh, hell no. I go back and it says Whoopsie Woolly, 9:15. It's about 9:10. And it's like, damn, Whoopsie Woolly's supposed to go up in a little while. So back then, they did not have DJs when they introduced comics. They used to either introduce you dry and you'd walk your ass up there. Comedy Store had a piano player. So they would introduce you, and then this dude would play the piano, you know, just some silly ass comedy music.
Right.
Or what they thought was funny. And so I went over to the piano player and I said, so who's next? And he looked at the thing, he said, Whoopsie Woolly. I said, Whoopsie Woolly ain't here. And he said, what, he hadn't shown up yet? I said, he ain't never gonna show up. He said, well, what happened? That's Mitzi's thing. Check it out. My name's Darryl Littleton. I'm the new comic. She wants to call me Whoopsie Woolly, but I can't do it. And he was a white guy, and he looked at it, he said, I understand. I said, if you can do me a favor, just introduce me as Darryl Littleton. I'll come up and I'll do my act, and then I'll talk to Mitzi later. But if you introduce Whoopsie Woolly, ain't nobody coming up, dude. Because if I do it once, that's it.
Yes.
I can't ever stand up later. Oh, I'm not gonna be Whoopsie. You were Whoopsie. The fuck you talking about? You did it. So it's like my thing, and I hope this isn't too gross for your show, but it's like my old thing about licking behind. Don't ever lick anybody's butt if you don't intend to do it again. Okay?
That's
Be careful
right.
of the booties that you lick and the asses that you kiss. It's figurative and literal. Don't just go running around kissing people's asses because they will expect you to kiss it again.
Yes.
So they let me be DMilitant. She never painted my name on the wall. And when the LA riots came, she gave me the boot. And I was there for about 1.5 years, and then she kicked me out. And the excuse was, she said, the manager told me, Mitzi says your comedy is too angry. And I said, well, you got Andrew Dice Clay, Sam Kinison, and Paul Mooney there.
Correct.
Next to those guys, my comedy was just slightly perturbed. So whatever. And went on back to the Comedy Act Theater and, just lived my life. And so after I just told that story because that's what they will ask you to do in Hollywood. And a lot of people will ask, well, whatever happened to so-and-so? Well, maybe they had some principles. Maybe they had some morals. Maybe they got put in a position where, damn it, because see, I wanted to be in the Comedy Store. Obviously, I wanted to be there. It made careers. It made a lot of people famous. So, and I had earned the right to be there. So to ask me to coon, it's like you're asking me how bad do I want it? Yeah. And my thing is, you ain't the only caterer in town. If you were the only comedy club in town, then maybe I would be tempered in my decision in the sense of how long it took me to say no. Maybe it would have taken an extra second because you're not the only comedy club in the country. So maybe I have to leave state to do comedy. But I'm not cooning for anybody. And I think that every comic who decides they want to do comedy or you're doing comedy, you have to draw up a checklist in your head as far as what you personally will do for entertainment and show business. And you have to understand who's ever asking you to do these things, especially now. I'm talking back in 1991 where you did not have a whole lot of comedy club opportunities because the boom hadn't happened yet. The comedy boom had not officially kicked in. When it did, I wasn't thinking about the Comedy Store because I was working the road. I was working at BET. I was doing all kind of shows. In 1993, I did 7 comedy shows. Wow. I won America's Funniest People. I won the grand prize. It was $10,000, which was very cool. Because I was only in comedy like 2 or 3 years when I was making all kind of, headway. I had done Comic View. I did Def Jam. I did Uptown Comedy Club, Showtime at the Apollo, Apollo Comedy Hour. I did Townsend Television. So, and there was something else. I did Fatter Days, which was like a pay-per-view thing. I did 7 shows in 1 year. And then I broke my leg in April of that very year. I had already recorded a lot of stuff. It was in the can. So I'm sitting there with a broken leg. I had a spiral fracture. And it was a lucky break. I look at it that way, as a lucky break. At the time, I cursed my luck because there was a movie made starring Jeremy Piven, and it had George Clinton in it. It was called PCU, and it had David Spade. It was made back around, you remember that movie?
I kind of remember that, yes.
It was about college kids running around and making a whole bunch of, okay. The black guy in that movie, I was supposed to be the black guy in the movie. Wow. What happened was, I auditioned for the movie. The director, I think it was Hart Bachman or Lloyd Bachman. No, Hart was the son. Hart Bachman was the director. I auditioned, and the producer said, say that again. And they had me say my sides again. He said, wait a minute. He went and got the director, Hart Bachman. He said, do the line for him. I did it for the director. He said, send it everybody home. This is our guy. He's got the part. That was it. So this happened in March. I had the part, signed up, all that. We start shooting in September. So do whatever you need to do. We start shooting in 6 months. April, I broke my leg. And it's like, I'm thinking, well, 5 months, I'll still be okay. Right. I've already laid all this other stuff down. I'm good to go. 5 months later, I was on, number one, I was on couch for 5 months on morphine. I mean, the whole 5 months I was on morphine. I was not in a hospital because a specialist treated my leg. He just set it and they put the cast on. And so I'm just morphined out for like 5 months. And I'm watching myself on TV. I'm watching me on as the shows are coming on. I'm sitting there watching them high as a kite. Like, damn, I was funny on that shit right there. My friends are calling me, nigga, you funny as hell. So when you gonna do something else? When you gonna hit the road? I got to the point where it's like, I gotta go out because people were calling, I gotta get out. So I was able to work in California, and I would get on a plane. I had the handicap seating because I had my cast and my crutches. And whenever I did a show, the host would always say, damn, this nigga is a real comedy soldier. He's working on crutches. Ladies and gentlemen, he flew here all the way from LA and all that. So I had a lot of credibility because of that. But then I'm still in the cast. And so I went to get the cast off, and the doctor said, okay, well, you have to rehabilitate. I didn't count on that. I had never had a broken bone in my body. I was 33 years old when this shit happened. So when it broke, I'm thinking, okay, well, once they take the cast off, I'll just start walking and running again. I didn't know shit. Dumbass. I didn't know about recovery. I didn't know about atrophy. See, here's the deal, and we'll talk about my cancer later. I also walked into my cancer just as ignorant. And see, I realized that when I walk into medical conditions kind of ignorant, that's better for me, because if I know the odds against me, I'll panic. Yeah. So I just like to think that it'll be all right, I'll be okay. So they took the cast off, and I'm looking at one leg that's normal and the other leg all pencil-like. And he said, well, you're going to have to like walk on it and rebuild the leg. So it's like, okay. So I started that. Oh, it hurt like hell. Oh my God. And so I'm thinking the leg was going to break again. The first walk I took is like, oh shit, this is going to break. Where the crutches? And so I started working the leg back. The guy from the movie called and said, okay, we need to see you to sign the final paperwork and all that. It's like, okay. And I got there, and he said, what's wrong? Why are you walking funny? Well, I broke my leg, and I'm working my way back. And they were like, well, we start shooting next week. Are you going to be able to run? Well, he told me it's going to take a few weeks to get my leg back. And it's like, we want you, man. And the dude sat me down and tried to figure it out. He really wanted me bad. He's like, and he looked at the script and he said, there's just no way I can shoot around you. He said, this is a movie and there's really no star in the movie. And I guess it would be Jeremy, because Jeremy Piven hadn't done a lot at that point. So he would have been the star, and they might have shot around him. Maybe they would probably replaced his ass. So with me, it was kind of like, damn, I needed somebody else. I was like, okay. But also morphine out. I was like, okay. I'm still on the morphine. So it didn't hit me till later. It's like, that's fucked up. There was a TV show that wanted me. I found out later, and I was just missing in action. So the reason I said it was a lucky break is Well, it was lucky break because I would have been a comic and I would have been a comedy actor and I would have had a career in the 90s. And because I'm of a sidekick nature and not a leading man, it's hard to mention any comics who were working in the 90s, black, who are still outside of Eddie Murphy, who's making movies.
That's
it's a
true.
small list.
Yeah.
There were a lot of guys back then that were doing it. But I think my time back then would have come and gone. I probably would have not devoted myself into writing in the same way or production, because what happened next was I had already produced a public access show of my own called Comedy on the Edge. And I had Jamie Foxx, that was his first TV appearance. D.L. Hughley, that was his first TV appearance. I had Yvette Wilson, her first, now rest in soul, Yvette Wilson, rest in peace. I had her, that was her first TV appearance. And I did 10 episodes and I produced it myself. So I knew how to produce. So what happened was when I broke my leg and they told me, well, you're not going to work in this movie. It wasn't like you'll never work again, but a lot of opportunities had come and gone. And because the comedy boom was in, we were like in a long line of comics. So if somebody screwed up, they said, excuse me, next. And they just called the next person. That's how that guy who, I forget his name, the guy who got the part in PCU. God bless you, brother, if you ever see this, because you have had a really good career. I had to look you up. I really did, because I saw you in Becker, and it's like, wait a minute, that's the guy who was in PCU. And then I saw the other stuff you do. Not that I would have got any of that other stuff after PCU, but I'm glad you took an opportunity that was there for a brother, and it wasn't just, that was your only movie. You made a career. But you weren't really a comic. You weren't really a stand-up. So you have been able to make a career. And I think you're still working to this day, to my knowledge. And I might have had a career like that, but then again, maybe not. Because like I said, I was a stand-up, and that guy's a real actor. I was a good actor, not a bad actor, but that really wasn't just the road I wanted to go down at that time. So what happened was I broke the leg. I was feeling kind of bad. I took a writing class from a writer named Leo Lawrence, and I was trying to learn how to write sitcoms, because it's like, well, I got to still stay in the business. And my agent manager tried to get me some sitcom stuff, but I was a beginning sitcom writer, and there's a formula to it. And it's just like, and what my literary agent said is, you're a good writer. You just need to write more. See, I needed to attack writing like I did stand-up. When I first started stand-up, I was working at a mortgage company, and I was making 6 figures a year, every year. Done it for 7 years. So I was fine as far as monetarily. Yeah, I was wearing silk suits before DMilitant and all that. And Buddy Lewis, the great Buddy Lewis, said, because my stand-up was hit and miss, because I had a comfort zone. I was like a fed cat. I didn't really have to be a comedian. And so I didn't have the pure drive that a lot of other comics had. He said, well, why don't you do DMilitant on stage versus Darryl Littleton? Because you're talking a lot of shit, but you don't look like a guy that needs to be talking shit. It doesn't work for the audience. And so, no, Buddy's a very smart guy. And then I did my act as DMilitant, because me and Buddy worked together on Tom Joyner Show. And I introduced DMilitant on that show. Buddy was a writer, Doug Starks, Mark Wilmore. Larry and Mark Wilmore were both writers on the show. Greg Eagle was on the show. Joey Gaynor, and a lot of very cool people were writers on that show. And Buddy said, try it that way. I did it on stage. And Ronaldo Ray was in the audience, who was a mentor of mine at the time. And he said, that's your act, God damn it. Forget all that other shit. That's you. You do that militant. Fuck the white man. And that was Ronaldo. So I stayed with DMilitant. And that's how I got all that stuff in '93 and up until then. Even Mitzi Shore, she liked DMilitant. She just wanted to call it something else.
Right.
You know, she wanted to put a kid on the car. That's all. Can't put no kid on this, baby. So, yeah, man, that was whack. And I like Paulie. I like Paulie. I've always liked Paulie Shore, personally. You know, I like Paulie personally, and that's why I don't want to talk bad about his mama, but I ain't the first one, Paulie. Certain people, your mama wasn't right. Simple as that. I mean, she thought she was doing what was best, but with me, misfire. So anyway, I went to the barbershop one day, and I've never done this in life before. That's why everything happened for a reason. Went to the barbershop, I got my hair cut, I left, I went home. I wasn't doing anything. Phone stopped ringing. Wasn't nobody looking for me now. They've moved on to the Michael Blacksons of the world.
I see.
I love you, Michael, because you are funny and we work together, so you know I'm bullshit. But Michael wasn't. I was ahead of Michael in the sense of public awareness.
Yeah.
And then other comics came with just Michael Blackson. I'm not fucking with just Michael Blackson. Other comics came that were actually funny and were talking shit. I mean, let's be honest. Let's go back in time here. Before I did DMilitant, was Chris Rock talking shit? I don't remember Chris Rock talking a whole lot of shit the way he talked shit after.
Right.
We're talking about 92, 93. Was Chris Rock before 92 or 93? Was Chris Rock really talking the kind of shit he talking now? Was Dave Chappelle talking kind of shit he talking now?
No.
All I'm saying is a lot of comics all of a sudden said that, you know what? Fuck it. That motherfucker right.
Exactly.
You can't talk shit. Don't get me wrong. Paul Mooney was talking shit before me. Richard Pryor was talking shit before me. Lenny Bruce was talking shit before me. Franklin Jai was talking shit before me. Dick Gregory was talking shit before me. But from my class of comedian, no, fellas. Y'all wasn't talking shit. I was the first one of that new 90s era to do that. And hell, I had to fall on the sword for it. But that was fine.
Yeah.
Because I knew there were other outlets. So it's like, okay, I don't have to stand on stage and talk shit. I went home, and then something told me, go back to the barbershop. I don't know why I did it. I've never done it before, just to hang out, just to hear some people talk shit. So I went and hung out. DL Hughley was there, and I knew DL. And we had worked the road together and all that. And so we're kicking in the barbershop talking shit. And he says, he called his wife. His wife could not pick him up. And he said, could you give me and the kids a ride home? We're right up in Baldwin Hills, right up the road, because we're in Leimert Park, right up the street. Can you give me a ride home? Now, Dio did not know this at the time. Because I said, yeah, hell yeah. I had already called, he had already done Comic View one season. I had called his writer, Vince D, and when I found out the show got picked up for a second season with DL, I had called him and said, do you guys need more writers? Because I noticed in the credit, it's just you. And he said, yeah, man, we're probably going to need more writers. This is Vince D telling me this. So it's like, okay, cool. So I'm thinking I need to go through BET to get the job. I'm not going to go to DL because Vince just said they need more writers.
Right.
I'm on credit. I got my ass over to FDD Florist. I bought a bunch of flowers and roses. I drove them up to BET Comic View on Olive Avenue in Burbank. And I found out who the secretary was of the guy who was the vice president. Wrote out a nice note, you know, I want a job, goddammit, and I'm trying to smooth. And so I gave it to her, and I didn't hear shit from him ever. I never heard another. I didn't even hear a thank you, you know, nothing. Wow. So it's like, well, so now I'm with DL. So I'm driving him home, and I just threw it out there. It's like, hey, man, now that you got a second season, you guys need more writers? And he said, more? I need a writer. I said, well, you got Vince writing for you. He said, man, Vince is my boy. So let me explain it to you like this. He's my buddy. We're together all the time. Vince don't really work for me. I get ready to go on stage. It's like, Vince, what you got? He say, talk about fat bitches. He said, I need somebody to write jokes. And I said, I'll write them. And he said, okay, you're my writer. I tell you what, I'll put you in touch with my manager, Tony Spires, and we'll get you hooked up on the fax machine, and you'll get me some material. If we like it, we'll use it. Okay, fine. So I worked out of my garage. I never had to leave home because I was still on crutches at this particular time. So I'm typing my shit and I'm faxing it over there. And I'm talking about the old days with the fax where you had that long ass waxy paper. I had one of them fucked up fax machines in my garage, but I had an office in my garage. Wow. And I would get him the stuff, and his manager, Tony Spires, would say, okay, we like it, we like it, we like it. And he kept using the stuff. And then they said, okay, we're getting ready to start shooting the shows. DL has worked your material on the road. It's cool. We want you there for the actual recording of the show. So I went down there, and now the Comic View staff got to see DL had a different writer or another writer, whatever. And that's when they said, okay, well, the next season came along and they wanted to know, Dio said, keep him here. And so they did. They brought me back the next season. And Cedric, this was the season where Cedric became the host.
Yeah.
This is funny. Yeah, I love this story because me and Cedric had worked on the road together and we had a lot of fun. So we knew each other real well when he came in. And I asked him, I said, well, okay, I'm your writer. And he said, well, D, you really don't have to write for me. And I said, man, keep it down. Lower your voice.
Right.
I got to write for somebody around here, Cedric, God dang.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I have no job. So he said, well, I tell you what, I have my boy Darius who writes for me. So what you do is, Darius was supposed to write for him. I'm thinking the whole time, Darius is going to write and we get back and Darius hasn't done anything. So now we got to shoot a show. Cedric's thing was, well, I can do some of the bits that I've worked on, but a lot of bits I've already put on TV. That's how we came up with the air guitar. He had already done it before previously. It hadn't been on TV. He showed it to me. It's like, hell yeah, do the air guitar. And that was one of the biggest hits that kind of cemented Cedric with the Comic View audience where they really liked him. So after his season was over, they wanted to fire me because, not because Sommore was coming in, because their thing was, well, what else do you do besides write? And I said, well, you hired me as a writer. Now, this is the head writer saying, and her thing was, yeah, but if you can only write, we don't need you. We need people who can write and produce and do all other kind of stuff. I said, I can produce. And she said, oh, really? I said, yeah, I know how to produce. She said, okay, we'll see. So they put me with the head producer. He showed me how to do their particular brand of production. And he said, I'm gonna go to lunch. Go ahead, here's our editor. Put this mock show together. And then I know if you can produce or not. He came back, I put the show together. And he said, okay, you know how to produce? He said, damn, I don't really have to tell you shit. And he was a white guy, his name was Bob Higgins. He said, hell, I can kick my feet up now. Because they were 10-hour shifts to edit those shows.
Wow.
10 hours. And I was willing to do something most people weren't. I was willing to work double shifts.
Whoa.
Like finish a 10-hour shift and then I would knock out another one because I would give the editor my edit notes. Because when I started comedy, like I said, I worked at a mortgage company making a lot of money, but during lunchtime, I went up to the roof every day and worked on jokes. And every night, 5 nights a week, I would go on stage somewhere. I don't care if it was I was a comedy addict. That's all I wanted to do. And I wanted to get good at it quick. Like my first 100 shows, I would say I bombed at least 85 times. People that remember back then, and I'm talking about people like Magic Johnson and Evander Holyfield and Mike Tyson. The third time I went on stage, Robin Harris was the host and he brought up Martin Lawrence. And I just called a Comedy Act Theater and said, I'm a comedian. They didn't vet me worth the shit. He said, okay, you come on over to the club. And I had been to the club and I had watched the caliber of comedian, but I didn't know they were putting me up third. I didn't know they'd put me up after Martin Lawrence. And Martin had already done What's Happening Now. So it was before Def Jam, but people know who Martin was. And so Robin Harris was a force of nature and probably one of the funniest comedians I will ever see in my life.
Yes.
And then he brings up Martin Lawrence, who was like the hot kid at the time. And then you bring me up. And I was not DMilitant at the time, I don't think. No, I wasn't. It was my third time on stage. I wasn't DMilitant yet. So I went up there and, ooh, I died. Ooh, it was a bomb. Oh, it was terrible. It was so bad. Robin came on and he talked about me. I gave that nigga 10 minutes of material talking about me. The place was packed. I'm talking about Lakers were there. Tyson was there. Every boxer that I love was there.
Oh,
like I said,
no.
Tyson, Holyfield. Let's see who else was there. Magic Johnson was there. All kind of movie stars. Oh yeah, Denzel was there and Wesley Snipes.
No.
All of Hollywood saw me bomb and then saw Robin take me to task. And I was with my first wife. I've only been married twice. I was with my first wife, and I said, I almost wanted, as I exited the stage, I pictured in my head, grab her hand, and you'll both be out the door, and we could be home in 10 minutes. And fuck this shit. I've had enough. I'm not going to do this ever again. And I went to grab her hand and she pulled me down, like, where you going? It's like, let's get out of here. What the fuck? And she's like, no, you have to stay. You cannot leave. So I sat down and I had to listen to Robert Harris talk about me like a dog. And I'm looking over my shoulder, I see Denzel Washington like, you know, and Mike Tyson looked like he want to whoop my ass. But wait, because you had to go until the light came. And I'm looking like, I'm dying up here. Why ain't you putting this goddamn light on? You can see this shit ain't working. But the light man was like, nah, dude, if you were, and I realized, and I'll tell every comic this, if you're gonna do comedy, that's it. That's the deal. You have to take the worst, and it's gonna be bad. But if you can survive that, it ain't shit. I bombed at the Apollo Theater. This was in my first 100 shows or so. I bombed at the Apollo Theater so bad, and I did bomb as DMilitant, that the entire Apollo Theater booed me. And this was back when they booed DL, they booed Ricky Harris, they booed Jamie Foxx. Every West Coast comic that went to New York, boo. When they said, yeah, this next brother from California, boo.
Boo, already.
Boo. So I went and they didn't boo me on that. They booed me when I said assalamu alaikum. And they booed me. Yeah, assalamu alaikum, boo, nigga. This was in 1991.
Wow.
October of 1991. November of that same year, 91, 92, November of that same year, Malcolm X came out. I went back in February the following year and I did Apollo Comedy Hour. Same. Now, the interesting thing about doing the Apollo was I had gone to Sandman because I knew the reputation of West Coast comics. I might get booed. They won't pay you until you finish your act. And they pay you like $500. And the whole trip cost me $503. So I didn't mind being out of $3, but I had to get that $500 back. So I go to Sandman and I said, whatever happens, don't come out there. He said, you sure? I said, dude, I don't care if the whole place and rats come out of the corner and boo me. He said, okay. And they did. People came off the street to come in the building to boo me. It was that bad. And he did not come out. And then I came off stage and he said, damn, you brave as hell. It's like, check, please. Check. Right. I earned that. It was savage. And then I went downstairs and there's a great comic named Fat Doctor. And he was down there and he said, man, that was some bold stuff you did. And I said, yeah, but they booed me. And it really didn't bother me as much as I guess it should have. There was another comic down there. His name was Terry Hodges. Terry had sued Chris Tucker. They were on the road together years ago. And he sued Chris Tucker. So I have no problem about saying this about Terry Hodges. Terry Hodges said, yeah, man, they don't like that pimp shit. And I said, pimp? I said, it was militant. And he said, oh, okay, whatever, nigga. You know, and it's like, see, ignorance is pervasive. So that's why I said I did that, and that was in October of 92. Malcolm X came out in November of 92. I went back in February of 93. Same thing, Apollo, but instead of Showtime, I did Apollo Comedy Hour. Assalamu alaikum. They all knew what Black Power was back then at that moment, and I got a standing ovation. So, you know, that's the deal about comedy. It's all based on timing. Yes. So I ended up producing, like I said, at BET. I ended up producing for Sommore. I produced for Don D.C. Curry and wrote and produced for him, which is another thing. I didn't write shit for Don D.C. Curry. I earned a check. See, I used to get checks for doing nothing. I earned my writing producer checks for producing, quite honestly. I didn't really have to write. I would write the introductions that the comics would come up on, but the actual material that DC or Cedric used, I didn't write that. Those guys had their own material. They were seasoned comedians. It would just be like if somebody said, well, I'm going to write for you, D. I really don't need you. I'm not going to say to your bosses that he's not writing anything because I want you to keep your job. I'm going to take food off another Black man's table. And I mention these guys because I love both of them for being those kind of brothers, because yes, we had known each other ahead of time and we were cool, but that don't mean they had to keep me in a job. That's so right. Cedric and DC Curry, yeah, y'all are real brothers. Y'all are real Black men, and much love to both of you and much respect.
They're two of my favorites, actually.
I also wrote for
They're two of my favorites,
I also
actually.
wrote, yeah. Well, I wrote for Montana Taylor and Sommore, and then I left Comic View. They brought in the Blackberry Inn, which really wasn't my cup of tea, and it got me fired because I thought it was kind of a coony take on things, and I was hired to produce Comic View, and another guy was hired to produce the Blackberry Inn. It was two separate shows, but what happened was they could not find BET could not get a sponsor for the Blackberry Inn. Nobody, not Ultra Sheen, not the Duke Man, not Jet Magazine, not no Schlitz Malt Liquor. Nobody wanted to sponsor the Blackberry Inn. So we had shot Comic View. This was 1997. We had shot Comic View. I had produced the show. I was 6 weeks ahead of schedule. 6 weeks. I had nothing to do. I had already put my shows to bed. That's how good of a producer I was at that time. I could give my editor, producer notes, and then go work with another editor on another part of the show, on another show. I could produce 2 shows simultaneously, do double shifts, and produce 4 shows in a single day. God. Nobody was cranking it like me at that time. I was a beast.
Yes.
I damn near slept there. I went home just to grab some shit and go back to work. And I cranked out that whole season. I was 6 weeks ahead of time. They came to me and said, check it out. We can't get nobody for the Blackberry Inn, so we're going to have to put that back in Comic View. I said, what does that mean? They said, you have to unwind those Comic View shows and insert this shit in there. So my 6 weeks is gone because it's going to take me 6 weeks to do that. So, but I'll still make schedule. I'll still make deadline. No, because they kept coming up with changes. We don't like it like this. We don't like it like that. We don't like it like this. So my 6 weeks went to 4 weeks, went to 3 weeks. Now I'm getting ready to be behind schedule.
Oh.
They had to use our in-house producers to do other shit. So they sent me out of house to produce this bullshit of Comic View and the Blackberry Inn mixed together. A soap opera and a comedy competition. It was garbage. And unfortunately for Montana Taylor, she was the face of all of this. So they sent me down the street to a guy, and his race has nothing to do with it, because we had white editors and black editors at BET, and they both did. There was one guy I want to point out. His name was Colin Taylor. He is a great editor, and he's the guy I would work with any day of the week. But we had some very good editors down there at BET. They sent me down the street to a guy who had never even seen Comic View. He had no idea what we were doing. And so he didn't know that formula. And so he sure didn't know how to stick the Blackberry Inn in there. So I'm trying to show him and familiarize him. I'm giving him notes and all that. And I had been doing double shifts so long, it finally caught up with me. So I was used to giving guys notes, maybe napping for an hour in a 10-hour shift, waking up, and we're going right along schedule. Hell no. I pulled that shit with this white guy. I woke up and I didn't know what the fuck he was producing. I didn't know what he was editing. I said, what's that? He said, this is your show. I said, that's the end of the show. He had the ending credits at the beginning of the show. He didn't have the good goddamn common sense to even know that even if the notes were wrong, even if you couldn't read the notes, this is the end of the show. Why you put it at the beginning? So I had to have him fix that. And now I'm really screwed up because I have to turn this shit in. And it was garbage. So I had to try to go to somebody else to fix it. So eventually they had to call me in and say, we can't air this. I said, yeah, I know. He said, we're going to be behind. He said, we're going to have to show reruns of last season for about a week until we catch up. I said, I know. And that's when me and Curtis Gatson, who was the vice president, that's when he fired me. It was October of 1997. My contract ended in November, and I knew it was going to be my last season. I wanted to go on the road, and I wanted to take advantage of the comedy boom, and I didn't want to be stuck just being a producer. And so he fired me, and I was like, okay. So I went over to Europe. I went over to Asia. I toured, and I entertained troops, and I had a great time. And I came back, and I found out that I got blamed for the terrible season of Comic View. that they threw it all on. I felt like Dave Chappelle when he came back from Africa. It's like, what? They been saying all that? Yes, nigga. They been saying all this about you while you've been gone. And I didn't read any paper from the United States. I was out there for like months and months. I came back and it's like, I'm reading articles like, and I get calls from friends, man, why'd you fuck up Comic View? Oh, okay, it was me.
Oh,
all
no.
right. So after that, very few people wanted to work with me. So I ended up having to like travel around and do the chitler. It was almost like starting all over again because they figured, well, his stand-up career didn't work because they didn't know about the broken leg. He didn't make it in movies. He never got his own TV show. And then he was producing Comic View, one of the hottest stand-up shows on TV, and he fucked that up. So, and then Mitzi Shore had already blackballed me on the white circuit. I already knew that because one day I was working at the Ice House and Tracy Morgan and George Lopez were there. And I remember walking in this area where they were sitting and Tracy Morgan looked at me and said, "DMilitant, too raw for the mainstream." And George Lopez said, "You too angry, man. They can't fuck with you, too angry." And so they basically, and it all comes to thumbs down. We ain't fucking with him. He's too radical. He will not cool, toe the line. He won't.
Yeah.
So that was. I knew things were rough for me because I had went to the Ice House and I walked in this area and Tracy Morgan and George Lopez were there. I knew both of them, but you know, we weren't tight or anything, but I knew them. And I remember Tracy Morgan, this was before the Walmart accident. This is the old Tracy Morgan. He said, "DMilitant, raw for the mainstream." And George Lopez said, "You too angry, man. They can't fuck with you. They won't fuck with you, man." And I'm sitting there like, so you motherfuckers been sitting around in a goddamn sewing circle talking about DMilitant, and the consensus is, fuck him. We ain't fucking with him. Hollywood ain't gonna fuck with me, huh? Is that right? And because I knew Missy Shore had already blackballed me.
Yeah.
When she kicked me out of the Comedy Store, she basically let everybody know, don't fuck with this guy. He won't coon. He won't do it. Can you believe it? We're trying to give this nigger an opportunity, and he won't degrade his people. Fuck him. So this was around, now like I said, I left Comic View in 97 and I just did the road for like 7 or 8 years. I did Asia, I did Europe, I did like 7 tours going back and forth doing the US, and then when I wore out the Chitlin circuit, I would just go back overseas. And I did that to the point where the places and I would say, "Wow, this is really a nice place." And they said, "You said that the last time you were here." And then I realized, okay, I'm that guy now. Is on the road. And I remember I read an article where Bill Burr said when he realized he was that guy, he was at a club and he looked at the same way this circuit over and over. And I realized that was happening to me. I was becoming that guy that you're just doing the same shit, dude, over and over and over. How long do you think this is gonna last? And that's when I wrote my book. That's when I got a literary agent. I had a manager who was my lawyer. His name was Jeff Silberman. And I told him, "Look, I got to go in another direction. I got to do something, man. Otherwise, you know, I'm just languishing out here."
Right.
And he said, "Well, what do you want to do?" I said, "I want to write something that's like big enough to get me back in the conversation, because I'm a better writer right now than I am a stand-up, obviously." So I had written a book called Urban Comedy Confidential, and it was all about the black comedy boom when the industry did not give a fuck about it, and so nobody wanted the book. But the people, the literary who read the book, said, "It's a good book. We don't know who Jamie Foxx or Cedric is." They didn't know who any of those people were because these is the white industry. But they said, we can tell that you know about Black comedy because you talked about some other people in here that we do know. You know about Richard Pryor and Paul Mooney and all that. So are you willing to do a book about Black comedy? We'd be willing to publish that. I had 3 publishers look at what I had turned up, and they said one wanted me to do a book 70s, and the other wanted me to do a book on just the Harlem Renaissance era. And then we had Applause Books, and they said Michael Messina, who was the first guy, my agent was June Clark. Michael Messina was the publisher of Applause Books, and they said, we want a full history of Black comedy. And then June Clark, and I will love this woman until I die, she said, because I didn't know how to write a book, I had written a book, but nobody cared. And so she said, I went to her and I said, well, what's the structure? I know it's a history book, and is there anything I have to do? Because when you write a movie script, there are certain beats, like the first 20 pages, you got to do a twist. So there's formulas to, and my thing is, having never written a published book, and I don't want to screw this up, I said, I could have went to a lot of books, but I went to her and I said, well, what's the formula? She said, you know what? The kind of book you're writing has never been done before. Do it any kind of way you want. Have fun.
Wow.
And it reminded me when Keenan Ivory Wayans said Fox TV told him he could do any and live in color any kind of way he wanted. He said, word? I felt the same way. It's like, are you kidding? I can write this book any way I want. And it completely freed me up because I didn't have to go by any formula, and I wrote it any way I wanted to. And when it was published, a literary agent, I think for Essence Magazine, said he called my writing style literary hip hop. I thought that was cool as hell. Yeah. So it freed me, and I've written 8 books. The book I have coming out in December 3rd, I have an encyclopedia coming out, and that'll be my 9th book. And the only reason I mentioned that, besides tooting my own horn, is that, like I said, June Clark made it possible for me to write those other books. Had she not said what she said, I would have probably fumbled on that first one, and I probably never would have wanted to do another one again. But because the first one was so successful, I want to thank Michael Richards for being a racist, because my book was published on November 6th, the year 2007. That was the same day Michael Richards went on stage and called those Black people who came late niggers and put a pitchfork on them and all that at the Laugh Factory. So that Monday, that all happened over the weekend. That Monday, my publishing company got so many calls that people wanted to interview me because my first chapter deals with the word nigger.
Wow.
Because we came over here as slaves, and the book is called Black Comedians on Black Comedy. So I just took it from 1619 all the way up to 2006. The first chapter deals with the slavery, and I break down every kind of way they called us nigger. So now I'm a nigger expert.
Yes.
They called me, man. Joe Franklin from New York called me. I did like 15 interviews on the word nigger. And that book went to paperback in record time. It hit every library. It got taught at USC as part of the curriculum. I did speaking engagement for the next 10 years off of that book. It got made to the documentary, Why We Laugh, directed by Robert Townsend, got aired on Showtime. We had taken it to the Sundance Film Festival, and it allowed me to do everything else I have done literarily. I have played the Muhammad Ali Center and the speaking engagement thanks to that book. That book changed my career completely. And the next one that comes out will rechange it, because the book I did now is not on Black comedy. It's an encyclopedia on ethnic comedy. So it's got Blacks, it's got Latin, it got Asian, it's got Middle Eastern, it's got First Americans. I don't call them Native Americans. They First Americans.
Yes.
My brown brothers, who I have brown brother skin in me, because I'm a mutt. Most Black people over here are. My people were slave stock. So I'm not from the northern Negroes. I was from slave stock. And I have land in Alabama that the former slave owner owned, and our family ended up getting it as sharecroppers. When they left Alabama, they just gave it to us.
Wow.
And so I worship that property because of what that meant as far as my family. But yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Well, that
What was the last thing I
said? As you're talking about this encyclopedia, it's so extensive. Yeah. You have included quite a few comedians in it. Okay, so this encyclopedia seems very in-depth with a lot of, a lot of great comedians in it. How did you make sure that no one was excluded in it?
The problem with modern day history is I'm bound to have excluded somebody. Yeah. And I say that because every history, when I was a kid, I was 9 years old. There was a kid named John Edwards. He was an Asian kid, not a great name for an Asian kid. But the thing was, the reason I mentioned him, he found a mistake in a textbook at 9 years old. And he was on TV and the news media made a big deal about it and all that, because this was back in the 60s, 1960s, early 70s. I and everybody else, whoever has written anything, have made mistakes. They're there, and if you dig deep enough, you will find a typo here or some grammatical stuff there. John Lennon said if he ever tried to write the perfect song, he'd have never finished the song. And so I say this in my own defense as far as doing modern day history. Any history book you've ever written or has ever been written that you have ever read, there are mistakes. There were people left out. There were events that were not right, but we don't know that because I wasn't there during the American Revolution. I wasn't there during the Civil War. I wasn't there during the Harlem Renaissance. So you can tell me any goddamn thing, and I'm going to buy it 50, 100, or 200 years later. Trust me. When people read Black comedians on Black comedy, they're going to believe every single word in there. When they read this new book of mine, This Day in Comedy, the Ethnic Encyclopedia of Laughter, they're going to believe every word in there, whether it is right or wrong. And I go through great painstaking things to keep everything right. I have made mistakes. I had a couple of births wrong. I didn't make it up. I did my research. Somebody's publicist is screwing up. If I look at 3 different sources and it says the same goddamn birthday, and then I put it up there just as a post, and you hit me up, Comic X, and say that ain't my birthday, of course you know your own birthday, but my thing is, and I had a comedian who, I love this woman. She said, I hate social media because they've been putting the wrong birthday for me for years. And I said, okay, well, let's get this shit right. What's your birthday? Because they said this woman had been on Good Times, and at the time they said that, she was 9 years old. Oh. They said she had been on Good Times, and I knew that was wrong when she told me when her real birthday was. So she let me know she had started in show business at 8 years old. I know I'm kind of giving it up once people read the book, but she started show business at 8 and doing little parties and entertaining and all that. And then she became a comedian, and she's had a great career. So there are mistakes in this book. I'm not going to say there aren't, but there are very few. And here's the deal about history. And I'm not trying to be blunt about this, but some people are going to take it the wrong way. I don't really care. When they say history, I'm HIS. I'm the HIS. Okay, I will give it to King James on that Bible, because he's the only one that had guts to say, this is the King James version of the Bible. Mm-hmm. This ain't God's version. This ain't Marshall Luke's. This is my version of the Holy Scripture. So I don't care everybody that ever reads a book of mine, whether it says it or not, if it got my name on it, that's Darryl Littleton's version of this history. Yeah. I can only get the information I can get. Does it skew a lot with West Coast comics? Maybe. I'm a West Coast comic. These are the people I work with. Am I fair to that? Dang right, because I work with a lot of them. And I have them in featured spots as much as I do West Coast comics. But when it came down to naming names at the end, and as I say, at the end of this book, there's like a scroll of names. A, B, C. If your name starts with an A, all you gotta do is look under there. If your name's there, that means I know you're gonna like it, and I'm aware of your work. If your name's not there, it means one or two things, honestly. It means I am not aware of your work and I really don't know you.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that, because who the hell am I at the end of the day? I wrote a book and you will make your presence known. And if I do a volume 2, I'm sure you'll make that. But the other thing is, and I will say this, there are some comics who have done dirt to the art of comedy. I can name 3 of them. Their names are not in the book because of that. Because you cannot be a comedian, call yourself a promoter, and then get comics over to do your shows and not pay them, and then want to come back to comics and get a booking. You're not a comedian to me. You're a charlatan. You're a snake oil salesman. You're an upstart, and I'm gonna say it right honestly, you're a piece of shit. You don't screw other comics. So your names are not there, and the 3 of you fuckers, you know who you are, because I've already let you know. Fuck you in the most obvious terms. So when your grandkids look at the book, an encyclopedia, and say, how come your name ain't here, granddaddy? Because that nigga didn't like me. That's why. That's just real.
Yes.
I love my dad because he put a lot of steel in my spine. And I was listening to the Ohio Players song today, I Want to Be Free. And there's a great line in that song where they say, I want to speak my mind all the time. I grew up on that. I've never bit my tongue. Even when it fucked me, never bit. I don't feel Paul Mooney has bitten his tongue. I don't feel Richard Pryor bit his tongue. That's where I first heard it. I heard Cornel West, I think it was Cornel West that said Richard Pryor was the freest man in America, even more freer than Martin and Malcolm. And he said it in my documentary. He said, because he spoke his mind. He said whatever he wanted to say. And as a comedian, we're given license to do that. Lenny Bruce paid the ultimate price. They say Jesus died for our sins. Lenny Bruce died so comics can say whatever they want. So I don't understand comics who don't. I don't understand this. Why are you scared? They're not going to take away your cabaret card because ain't no such thing anymore. They're not going to stop you from working except certain spots that don't want your brand of comedy. But we are in the age now of the internet, and the gatekeepers are dead. If you want a certain career, those gatekeepers still exist. But if you want a career, there ain't no gatekeeper.
Yes.
So I don't really worry about I'm going to be the next Kevin Hart. And they are looking for another one. Not that there's anything wrong with Kevin, but Kevin got back problems. You think they're going to wait for this dude to recover from back surgery to continue with all those projects where people are waiting, crews are waiting, sets have been oh, come on, man. Locations have been scouted. When Robin Harris died, he was supposed to be the host of Def Comedy Jam. The One Monkey Don't Stop No Show, and I ain't calling Robin Harris a monkey. I'm using a phrase. They went and got Martin Lawrence. Robin and Ronaldo Ray. Hell, in that case, I was supposed to do PCU. They hired another guy. I couldn't do it. So nobody stops nothing. None of us are indispensable. So trust me, Damon Wayans got the, what was it, Last Boy Scout or that was Last Boy Scout. That was supposed to be Robin Harris. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So when people pass and move to the side, other opportunities are created for others. So we're in that kind of business. Nobody is where you gotta have them. You know, you ain't.
Wow. Yes, so true, so true. My goodness. Well, I'm so thankful for, you know, your style and you paving the way for a lot of those things that we are becoming, that social media world where it's almost where comedians are afraid to, should I speak out on things that, you know, before they were fearless about, you know, because you paved that way. Now it seems to be backtracking because they're taking away award shows, you know, like Kevin Hart experienced, and you know, oh, you're bringing up topics that aren't popular. So, you know, it's almost like people are scared to say anything anymore, which is unfortunate.
Well, people are afraid, like Dave Chappelle said in Sticks and Stones, people are afraid to lose their careers.
Yeah.
And since I don't really have a career like that I'm afraid to lose, I can say whatever I want.
Yes.
I'm going back, and thank God for the internet. I had cancer for 2 years. I don't like to take this on a bad note, But I had cancer for 2 years. 21 months I was suffering from bladder cancer from 2016 to 2018. So I've been a year cancer free. I went from 163 pounds, which was bloated. I normally carry like 145, 150. I had ballooned up to 163, and then within 2 weeks, dropped down to 120. 7 hospitals, 17 blood transfusions, 7 doctors and staffs all said, I ain't gonna make it.
Wow.
They had pretty much written me off. Yeah. And so I went to City of Hope, and I got chemotherapy, and it still wasn't kicking in because I had leg catheters, and I had blood in my urine, and I had tubes coming out of my back, coming into my kidneys. And at one point, only at one day did I ever look in the mirror and I said, this may be the end of Rico. and it's like, I thought one day it finally hit me that, you know what, this is a long ass battle. You may not win. You do realize that, right? You might actually die. And it only hit me one day, and then I said, nah. And I remember I had to get rushed to the hospital the next day after I said, nah. I had to get rushed to the hospital. My blood count was 4.9. And anybody who knows medicine, I didn't know shit, knows that I should have been dead. At 4.9, you're at a heart attack stage. You're supposed to be around 10 to 13. And the guy, the tech, because they had to rush me into emergency because I had an oncologist. His name was Dr. Mitchell Ginn, Dr. Mitch, they call him in Florida. And Dr. Mitch is full of shit. Dr. Mitch, when you have cancer, you get very desperate. And I went to Dr. Mitch out of desperation. I had been to USC, I had been to Kaiser, I had been to Huntington Memorial. I had been to, like I said, 6 different hospitals, and I went to Dr. Mitch, and because I had heard that he had cured Jamie Foxx of some bullshit. And so Dr. Mitch got me there, and it looked like it was working out. But then Dr. Mitch got a little bit of hubris. He thought he was working out really well, and he tried to accelerate the process because I was only going to be there with it for 6 weeks because I had flown from LA to Florida, and I had enough money to stay there for 6 weeks and go through his treatment and all that stuff because I knew how much it cost. And so when he knew I had money, he started trying to stick me and, well, you're going to need this extra here and extra there. It was supposed to be $244 per session or $248 a session. Next thing I know, I'm paying $386. He started putting all kind of garbage fees on me. But I'm a cancer patient. I'm dying. So I go along with it because I just want to live. I'll deal with your ass. You get me through this, I'll do it. He gave me some pure iron. It threw my body into some kind of almost cardiac arrest. They had to put me in a heat lamp, double session. And then he ended up driving me home to the hotel I was in because he wanted to watch his ass and make sure this motherfucker don't die on him. The next day I came back and I was so jacked up that they took my vitals and it's like, oh shit. And so they had to call the hospital. Dr. Mitch is not part of a hospital. So if you fuck with Dr. Mitch, understand, he cannot get you in a hospital. He had to call somebody he knew, another doctor, and I can't remember his name, but God bless you. I went over to his clinic. He did my vitals, and he said, oh, shit. And he gave me some Ensure. He said, drink this quick. And so I drank the Ensure, and he said, I got to get you to the hospital right away. And so he drove me to the freeway, and he said, now just take that one exit. I've already called emergency. They're waiting for you. I get to the hospital, and sure enough, these suckers are waiting outside the door. And it was Broward Hospital. And they were waiting outside the door. I come in, and they're like, yeah, we know all about you. And they rushed me in, and they found out you're at 4.9. God damn it. How are you alive? So they started giving me instant blood transfusions, and that just started a cycle. I ended up getting 17 blood transfusions before I got well.
Oh my goodness.
I got something in me, man. I used to love heights. I've jumped out of airplanes. I can't stand heights now. I'm terrified. One of my blood brothers is scared of heights because they say when you get blood from other people, you adapt their personality.
Wow.
I have never cried in a movie until I got blood transfusion. I was watching some gangster movie. I only cried one time in life in a movie. Everybody cried at Brian's song. We all cried when Brian Piccolo died. So I ain't no shame in that shit.
Right.
I was watching some hard ass gangster movie and the gangster got killed. Oh no. Not T-Bone. No. I couldn't believe it. I was like, why the fuck am I crying behind one of my blood brothers and my blood sister? She's sensitive. She cries at movies. Nothing else but movies. Get it? So anyway, I had 17 blood transfusions.
God.
And so I got all these people coming around in me now. And,
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, the way I recovered from cancer was very simple. And not really simple. I had a whole bunch of 2 rounds of BCG, 2 rounds of radiation, 17 blood transfusions, 7 hospitals. Yeah. And what it took was chemotherapy. Wasn't working that well. I went and the nurse asked me, her name was Heidi. I love this woman to death. Because I was in California again now. And she said, do you smoke? And I said, nope, I've stopped everything. I don't smoke cigars, cigarettes, or weed. And she said, who told you stop smoking weed? I said, in Alabama, they told me stop smoking weed because they said, and then she looked at me and she gave me a look like, what'd you say?
Huh.
I said, well, in Alabama, and then she gave me that look and I said, all right, it's illegal in Alabama. They can't tell me I can smoke weed. And she said, look, a lot of our chemo patients smoke weed. If you need to, go ahead. And because like I said, everybody had written me off. They didn't think I was gonna make it anyway. So I went home and I had some weed and I smoked the hell out of that shit. And it didn't take a whole lot. I was high as hell. And I went back 2 days later to for chemotherapy. And they were able to take the leg catheters off. They were able to pull those tubes out of my kidneys, out of my back. There was no more blood in my urine, and I was urinating through my penis like the good old days.
Wow.
In 48 hours, I had been completely cleared up. My oncologist, my urologist, and all the nursing staff said, this is a miracle. We've never seen anything like it. And they said, what did you do? I said, I smoked some weed. And they said, are you kidding? I said, that's it. I smoked some weed. And that was it. See, here's the deal. I realized why it worked. Because I had been smoking weed since I was 15 years old, pretty much nonstop. And so at this point, it's part of my physiology. Yeah. So when you took it away from me, my body needed to be familiar with what it was used to. So, because the doctors had me on, there was one time I was on Dr. Mitch had me on 10 goddamn pills, 10 bottles, take them every 3 or 4 hours. And I'm not just blaming him. Everybody had me on a whole bunch of goddamn pills. Yeah. The only thing that I liked the whole time I was sick was morphine. I mean, they gave me morphine in the pill form, and they said, because I had so much pain at one time, it said don't do it, but I could see no way around it. I had taken enough morphine on the prescription, and I was still agonizing. I'm talking about pain where you think you're gonna die at any moment. And so, and this is the greatest painkiller. It's morphine. It killed my pain before. So I said, I ground it up and started snorting morphine. You're not supposed to snort that shit, but it worked. It worked. Wow. Oh yeah, I snorted morphine and the pain was gone. And so I knew that it's like, well, here's the deal with morphine. Whenever you go, it's not an over-the-counter drug, you need a prescription. If you get a prescription for a drug, just don't get another prescription for it. And see, I knew when I made up my mind that when I started snorting it, it's like, when this is out, this is out. You have to make up your mind because you're either going to be a morphine addict or you're going to die. Yeah. So if you're going to die naturally, just go on and call it a day, pack your bags like Shaka Khan said, and you're out the door. But ain't no need to die on a morphine overdose. Yeah. Die on cancer, but don't die on a morphine overdose. Because it's very easy to happen. You ain't no doctor, dude, and you're just knocking this shit out like it's cocaine. And you know, you can't knock out cocaine like this. I haven't done cocaine in ages, my probation officer. You know,
right.
I got busted for weed when I was in 1979, and they said it was narcotics. And because 1979, it was, I think, a Class A drug or some shit. And they were going to put me in camp. I was 19. They were going to put me in a camp for 18 months. And my lawyer, I had a great lawyer. He kept me out of from going to prison or jail. 18 months. Yeah, so he got me one of those Felicity Huffman deals. I just got probation.
Right,
you know,
right.
Versus, yeah, man, Huffman's gonna come out with street credibility. Goes in on Friday, the 20th. 2 weeks later, by the 10th of October, Huffman will be out living her life like ain't shit ever happened. That other chick from Full House or whatever, she's gonna still be sitting there sweating by the nuts. What am I gonna do? Yeah. See, Huffman's gonna be hanging out with Martha Stewart, kicking it with Snoop Dogg, high-fiving, getting high with William Macy.
Exactly.
Because have you noticed there's certain white people, black people like, for some reason, we like Johnny Depp. For some reason, we like Tom Cruise. We like Robert Downey Jr. And the female side, for some reason, we like Helen Mirren. We like Meryl Streep. But if you bring up Anne Hathaway, we don't give a fuck. I don't get it. We like Jack Nicholson. Okay, we like Jack Nicholson. There's a lot of white people we like, but others we don't care about. You mentioned, like I said, Jack Nicholson. We love Jack Nicholson. You mentioned Richard Dreyfuss. We don't give a good goddamn. So, you know, it just all depends on, like, we didn't care about Kurt Russell probably until Tombstone. And then we liked it. We probably didn't care about Christopher Walken till The King of New York. Now we all like Christopher Walken. So that's just, we'll let you in the club, you know, every now and then. But I want to get back to the encyclopedia because I know we have to wrap up. I wrote the encyclopedia to cover every ethnic group except Jewish people and white people. And there's a reason for that. It has nothing to do with the fact, number one, I don't have that much time to cover all of that. This book took like 5 years to do.
Oh, wow.
It took a lot of time. Yeah, no, this book is like 5 years in the making. And part of that is due because I had cancer and I had to take off from writing it. So it probably took about 3 years of concentrated work and effort. But that's still a long time to work on a project. And because my thing about a book is when I type the first word or the first letter, I just can hardly wait to see it. I just want to open up the greatest thrill I had in my life besides the birth of my 2 children, my daughters, was when I wrote my first book and I got the box from the publisher and I opened up the box and there it was, smelling like new books. And it had my name on it, Gregory's name right underneath, and I fucking cried.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I did cry for that because it took a year to do the interview. It took like 7 months to do the interviews and then a year for the publisher to get it out. And to this day, that is one of the greatest moments of my life. Yeah. And I would tell anybody that ever writes a book, that would be the greatest moment. When you see publisher and you didn't self-publish it, even if you did self-publish it, god dang it, you finished the book, you got it out there, people can now read it, right, wrong, what to say, win, lose, or tie, I'm a writer till I die.
Right.
So, get your work out there. And I did not include Jewish or white people because there is a great comedians. It's written by a guy named Chris Nesterhoff. And I give it up to Chris because, number one, it is one of the best books on comedy I have ever read. I've read a lot of books on comedy, and he had so much stuff in there I didn't know shit about. Because just like I was able to go to 125 Black comedians, including the late Bernie Mac, the late Rudy Ray Moore, and a lot of other late comedians over a decade and a half ago, he was able to go to the white and Jewish comedians, some of them who have passed, some of the greats. And so while I was working in one field, he was working in another. And he gives it up to me in his book. When he gets to the Black comedy boom, he quotes my book extensively.
Oh, wow.
And so in my book, I give it up to him and I let people know, number one, I'm not trying to be racist with my book, but the bottom line is his or no other mainstream book can cover the ethnic landscape completely and comprehensively.
Yes.
And the reason is not because he would not, or any other white writer could not put in the work. It's because the people you have to get in contact with, and you have to know the playing field, and you have to know the lingo. In other words, if I had interviewed Norm Crosby, which he did, Norm would have answered the question, because I'm a black guy who Cliff Nesterhoff probably knew more about Norm Crosby growing up than I did.
Right.
So, like when I interviewed Rudy Ray Moore, I grew up on Dolomite. So I'm talking from that frame reference.
Yes.
Yeah, I grew up on a lot of white comics, but my experience was I'm a black comedian. So when I wrote Black Comedians on Black Comedy, I'm legit. I'm authentic as you can get. When I wrote the book Comedians Laugh Be a Lady, I wrote that with my wife, who's a female comic. Her name is Lady Tuesday. And I had to, number one, it was her idea to do the book. So naturally, when she comes to me, let's do a book on female comedians. Yeah, okay, I'm down. And I had her do all the interviews because women are going to answer the question. She knows what to ask better than I do, number one, and the answers will be more forthcoming. Women are not going to expose themselves fully to a guy the way they will another woman, and vice versa. That's just the way it is. So I just thought that was a smart move, and I had her do it. She said, I'm tired. Can you do some interviews? No, we'll just reschedule. I'm not going to blow away an interview. Whereas I don't want anybody to be guarded. Well, I want to tell this guy this. We found out so much stuff. Like one girl almost got raped, one female comedian, and I don't really know her name. And even if I did, I wouldn't get into it. But when you sign up, when you do a show, the promoters will give you a hotel key. You know, okay, you're staying over here at whatever hotel. Yeah. And when you go to get your key, you get 2 keys. This girl got 1 key. They said, they just gave her the 1 key. She went up to her room, went to take a shower, got out of the shower. She came out the shower. In the front room, the promoter's there on the couch with his hands up and all this. So you want to go to the mall? You want to go see a movie? She's like, nigga, what are you doing in here? He said, well, I'm the one that got the room. She's covering up and shit. Yeah, see, and they don't do that to male comics. Ain't no dude gonna be in my goddamn room when I go in that room. It's me. After the show, if I bring somebody there, that was my own business. But ain't no promoter doing that to no dude. And so I wanted those kind of experiences that women have to deal with. AJ Sanders, Gina from A Different World, she was stalked. This was years. She was on A Different World. She was on the road. She was stalked back in the Carolinas. And the way they used to run the tours back then, they would start one tour and then the following, it's a 2-week tour. And then the following week they would do like row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. So you're doing a round. So she had done this club the week before me. When I get there, they're telling me, hey, AJ Sanders had a stalker and this, that, and the other. It's like, oh shit, wow. And because I ended up talking to the stalker. I went out to the parking lot. I'm smoking a cigar. This brother coming, he's talking to me. It's like, yeah, man, I saw you last night. You a funny brother, man. It's like, oh, well, thanks, man. It's like, yeah, man, I like comedy. Yeah, AJ Sanders was here last week, man. We struck up a good little friendship and shit. You know, I'm trying to get in touch with her. Do you know her? And it's like, nah, I don't know her. I don't know shit about her. Nope, never heard of her. Who's AJ? Who? No, not me. And I went on back in the club. It's like, nigga, you the goddamn stalker. Because he had left that city and stalked her for like 3 clubs. They finally had to cut her tour short and send her back home. And every time she went on the road after that, she had to either take her dad or her uncle. She had to have male security with her. Guys, we don't have to worry about that. We just go. And so when we did the book Comedians, I wanted women to understand what it's really like to be a female comic. And I can't write from that frame of reference because I didn't know any of that shit went on. And it amazed me. And honestly, just like the Me Too movement, and I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke and say I'm a feminist, because I'm not. I never have been a feminist, but I have 2 daughters. And I've never been a chauvinist to the point where I think women are less than men. That whole concept, it's unfamiliar with me. the concept of paying women less than men. I had no idea that shit. I worked in the sales industry. I had no idea women could make less than men. How is that even fucking possible? But in the entertainment industry and in a lot of industry, it is done with great regularity. And it's bullshit, quite honestly. So my take on race and gender and everything else is, I ain't got time for this shit. I'm just trying to live my life. I'm not trying to create a world for anybody else but me. So if transgender people want to go over here and do what they want to do, it doesn't really affect me. It really doesn't. Only if I want it to. If I want to turn on Pose and say I'm disgusted by this, that was my choice.
Right.
If I happen to see two I've been in restaurants and I've been served by transgender. I have gone to markets and been served by transgender. At no point am I going to say, oh, hell no, let me go to a normal. I'm not doing that. That is a person. And whether that person is doing something I agree with or not is irrelevant, because I'm not going to equate anything to race at all, because race is race. But prejudice and discrimination, that ain't got nothing to do with race.
Yes.
That ain't got shit to do with race. You see, you can hate me because I'm a black man. You can discriminate me because I'm a black man, blah, blah, blah. But I'm always going to be a black man, straight up. So if you hate me because I'm not, but there's nothing wrong with that. But if you hate me because I am a gay black man, then shame on you for looking at, you shouldn't hate me for anything, but now you're going to something that is really none of your goddamn business. See, because that's the problem that I have with this whole gay bashing. I always have had a problem with it. Yeah, I do gay jokes because gays are people. Do I do transsexual jokes? I'm sure I'll get around to that. I'll get around to talking about every group out there. Because I don't think anybody should be excluded from this big thing about laughing at each other.
That's right.
Well, we bagged on each other and talked about our shoes. See, Dave Chappelle has a great special. I know some people don't like it. I love it, Sticks and Stones. And because he points out something very clear, that Black people were raised with adversity. We wake up with adversity. We eat it for breakfast. We gotta chew it every fucking day. When you go out in the public, you know, if you go out in an environment, when you leave your house, here comes the bullshit. If you know, if you go into a white environment, here comes some extra bullshit. Because somebody's gonna say something stupid, but you already know that. So, and you still make it through your day. Car wrecks, girlfriends breaking up, financial problems, whatever. White people will bump themselves off or try to injure themselves and all that. Besides all this adversity, I ain't talking about all white people, obviously, because there are still white people walking around. If they all stubbed their toe and killed themselves, we would see no white people.
Right.
So obviously, this is not something that every white person is doing, is killing themselves or planning to. But it is more prevalent in their community than ours. I know one brother that killed himself, and they were about to put that nigga in prison for the rest of his life. And he saw that as being the only way out.
Wow.
I'd have fled the country. I'll be honest with you. If you, I will live in a Mexican cave before I will dwell in a United States prison if I know I got the option. You have to just catch me and take me right then and there. But if you pull that bullshit about you, okay, well, surrender on Monday. Okay, I'll be here.
Right. Right.
And I know we got to wrap up, and I just one more story. There was a white guy. He was a big financial dude. His name was Kenneth Lay or something like. I maybe have the name wrong, but he had screwed the government or financial people out of like hundreds of millions of dollars. And they told this motherfucker, they had taken him to court. They had prosecuted him. They had sentenced him to like 40 years, 30 or 40 years. And he went on vacation because they gave him time. They said, turn yourself in on this date. And he's a white man. He said, okay. And he went on vacation. And then they got a call that said he died on vacation.
Wow.
And they said, well, bring back the body. We can't find the body. He drowned. He's been eaten by sharks or something got him. And that motherfucker is living right now. because that's what the white man does. The smart white man. He wasn't gonna kill himself. Fake your death. Wait a minute, they're gonna let me go and turn myself? Ain't no turning in. I don't know what the hell happened to Bernie Madoff. I don't know what the hell happened to Bill Cosby. Nigga, you coming out of court, hey, did you honestly think you were gonna get away with it?
No.
Public opinion was against you, Bill. When Whoopi Goldberg and Damon Wayans, your biggest supporters, said, okay, we've heard enough. That's when you should have known, Camille, pack our bags, we can fuck out of here.
Right.
I know you have money stashed somewhere, Bill. You were silly. You were silly and you were stupid. You were naive, and the people around you were thinking, oh, well, it'll all turn. Nigga, this ain't no sitcom.
No.
Credits ain't rolling at the end. Theo ain't coming out hugging you and shit. Are you fucking kidding? That dog ain't gonna come out. Oh, motherfucker, you're in prison right now behind being stupid. Not because of all the shit you did, which you deserve. If you were if you were drugging women for sex, you're Bill Cosby, dude. There's bums on the street get sex. There's dudes walking dogs. They got a woman walking right behind them with the shopping cart.
Right.
I knew what you were doing. You were doing the power play. All these little white girls and actresses coming around. Oh, you want to get some off Bill Cosby? Well, take some of this, take some of that. Yeah, well, that's your little sick way of doing it. But why'd you have to drug them? There's women that would have done anything you wanted just to get a small part in the Cosby Show. And you drugging chicks, that shows a sickness of mentality, which is why your dumb ass is in prison instead of being on an island somewhere with daiquiris and Kenneth Lay laughing because your black ass could have faked your death too.
Yep. Goodness.
So I know we have to wrap up. Folks can find
tell us that.
At Twitter, at D_Militant.
D_Militant. And your book, that's the encyclopedia.
And Mr. D.
Okay. How can they get their hands on that book? Can they pre-order it right now?
Yes, you can pre-order the book. It is called This Day in Comedy. Go to Amazon.com, type in This Day in Comedy, and this is late September. You will be able to get your book. The release date for the general public is December the 3rd. That's when it'll be in bookstores and everywhere else. However, if you pre-order it, you'll get your book in November. You'll get it 1 month, so you'll get it like November 1st to November 3rd. You'll have your book in 2 months. Less than 2 months, you'll have your book in 6 weeks. Yeah, that's kind of cool.
That's true. I know it's coming up quick on us. So
this year went fast. I'm doing some stuff next year.
Yes.
Yeah, I do have a lot of stuff planned. Now that I'm alive and hopefully well for a while.
Thank the Lord.
I'm a vice president of talent for Humor Mill TV, and we're doing a lot of stuff. We're a starting television network, and we do 24-hour comedy, 24 hours of ethnic comedy.
Wow.
And we started off, right now, we have 110 million mobile phone subscribers. We are also on TV. We're on Roku. We're on Fire Stick. And it's Humor Mill TV. You can get the Humor Mill app. Just go to your app store and type in Humor Mill, and you will get the Humor Mill app for Humor Mill TV. So you'll see comedy 24 hours a day. And the cool thing is I'm a VP in charge of talent for that. And we have on demand, and we are always looking for shows. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
so I'm doing a lot of stuff on that. I'm starting to get my own show. Like I said, we're a startup, and a lot of people when you start up stuff don't take it serious because we started in Jamaica, the Bahamas, parts of Africa. So we started in Europe, and so if you're not able to look at it here, you're like, yeah, y'all ain't doing shit, man. Y'all ain't in. We're in Puerto Rico. And so people really didn't believe it. And we were in small pockets of like in Alabama and little states here. But like if I said California, we might be up in a city of Norco, California or whatever when we first started. And we started 7 months ago. And now we have 110 million mobile subscribers. And we are about to get the on demand with one of the major guys. And then people will have to take that shit really goddamn serious there.
Oh yeah.
So I'm doing a lot of stuff for Humor Mill TV. I'm writing 2 other books that I will release next year. And so within a 12-month period, I'll release 3 books within 12 months. That's going to be pretty goddamn impressive.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And one of them is on my cancer situation, and the other is on the Black comedy boom. So I'll say what they're about. I don't have a problem with that. The goal, I have a bucket list to write 17 books, and I'll probably have to extend it because I'll probably end up doing that before I'm in the next 3 or 4 years. Because I'm up to book number 9 on this one. And if I come up with those other, in the next 4 years, I'll be done and I'll do something else. I want to get into documentary filmmaking.
Oh, nice.
And what I want to do is take a lot of the stories from these books and make them into like features or documentaries, kind of quasi-documentary. And to expose the public more to these comics who they don't know. Because I sent my book out to people who I knew comedy. And there's a lot of Middle Eastern comics or Latin comics they just weren't familiar with. And that's nobody's fault. And that's my job as a preservationist, is to bring light to these people who should not be neglected.
Right.
They're as critical as anybody else. When we did our book Comedians, Leslie Jones was not as big, did not devote as much ink to her. And I learned that from Black comedians on Black comedy. Cat Williams was not as big as he became. When I wrote Black comedians on Black comedy, though, Cat was bigger than Kevin. Kevin ended up being bigger.
Yeah.
Write a book with the few. So I try not to neglect anybody, and anybody that's on the right path, I try to make it look like that path will end favorably.
Yes.
I don't have a crystal ball. I have no idea. I don't even know how it's going to end. But I know I have a lot of stuff on a long list of things that I want to do for comedy, not just for Darryl Littleton or DMilitant. And I think that's where a lot of comics kind of lose it, because when I did this book, I had to go around to certain people and ask them stuff to clarify or confirm certain things that I had read. And what I found out was a lot of comics who have not done a whole lot, but have been in comedy a long time, think they've done a lot because they've done a lot of shows. Like, I know I've done over 6,000 shows, but had I not written a book, had I not produced anything, had I just done shows and just toured, I would not be so cocky and arrogant about my accomplishments, because that was based on me earning a living. I'm not really giving anything back.
Yeah.
But I feel that by writing books, trying to expose people or kick knowledge about comedy or expand the boundaries of comedy, that's when you're contributing.
Yes.
Whether you're a writer for a sitcom, whether you're writing for movies, whether anything that you do that employs others in the field of comedy, even if you write a comic book and you had to use an illustrator for it, and I have a comic book and I had to use the illustrator. My thing in comedy is we have to kind of feed each other, and it has to go circularly around. And that don't mean I have to cut your check, but it means I should create something where it's just more than me going up on the stage telling some jokes, getting paid, and walking out the door, and then 20 years later saying, how come I ain't in this book? Shit, right. I've been in I've been in comedy for 30 years. But what have you done for comedy?
Yeah.
Besides just doing it for yourself. I don't care if you did 10,000 shows. You've entertained a lot of people, and I'll give it to you. Yes. And you are a comedian, but I can't hoist you up and say he did 10,000 shows. I got to be able to write what you did. And some comics, and I'm kind of one of these comics, to be honest with you, I'm a resume. And then you have comics that have great stories. Yes. And I'll close it with this. Tommy Davidson is a great story. Tommy Davidson was left in a trash. He was left for dead at 18 months old. His Black parents left him. And a white woman found him in a trash can, brought him home, and he was raised by a white family. And that is the Tommy Davidson story. So Tommy Davidson has no animosity about white people in his bone or his marrow, and there's a part of him that does not particularly care about certain black people, I fully understand that.
Yes.
Because
yes.
he was a baby. It wasn't one of those teenage mothers that panicked and wrapped their kid and put it in a dumpster with dumpster babies. He was 18 months. He was 18 months. He could walk and he could talk, and you left him to die.
Wow.
And those are the kind of stories in the book.
Wow.
We got shit like that. We have Tommy Davison's great accomplishments, but I also tell you where this man came from and why it's incredible that he would even become a comedian instead of a bitter bastard that wanted to kill everybody he saw, but that he would become such an incredibly talented comedian.
That's right.
And Tommy Davison, to my knowledge, and I've worked with him a number of times, ain't never done nothing to nobody. He ain't never hurt nobody, just living his life, doing his thing.
Yeah.
And it got treated like that right out of the box.
Wow.
Key and Peele both were adopted. Both were adopted. It's a trip. They both had white mamas and black daddies, and they were both adopted by a white mama and a black daddy. A black mama and a white daddy gave them up, and then the same combination adopted them, and that's how they became friends, because they had a bond that's like a 1 in a billion bond. And these two guys found each other.
Wow.
That's the kind of stories that are in this book, besides the credits and all that. You get to find out who these incredible people are that have made you laugh all this. I love black comedians on black comedy. It will always be my firstborn, and it's gonna be the most special book to me probably the rest of my life, because it gave me a brand new life. But this, honestly, probably one of the best things I've ever written.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, and I don't know if I'll ever write as good as this. I hope so, because I got other books to write.
Right.
So I hope I keep going over my toes. But it's really a good book. And I gotta say this. Marsha Warfield wrote the foreword, Franklin the introduction, and they both read the book cover to cover before they did it. So it ain't janky, because there are very few really living legends left, and I count them as two of those real legends, and they gave it a stamp of approval. So I'm really happy with this.
Oh, wow. Absolutely.
So go to Amazon.com right now. Now that you heard about it, go to Amazon.com, pre-order in 6 weeks. You can read about everything I just spoke about. You can read about the Chris Spencer story, which is another incredible story. He got so dogged out, Hollywood has said, well, it's over for him after Vibe. And now he golfs with the former president, Barack Obama.
Wow.
Chris became the most in-demand writer, producers in Hollywood. After that, he got kicked in the teeth and he rose up like a phoenix. So there's so many stories like that. And this book is 492 pages. So I think this is going to make a whole new career for me, quite honestly. And I do want to teach. I want to end up teaching a course on this book. And,
that would be excellent.
I was trying to get into Harvard. I have I'm part of the Comedy Hall of Fame, and my padrone, as I call him, because we have 26 board member. We have Adam McKay, who was formerly with Will Ferrell. We have Jay Roach, who has directed he directed Something About Mary. So we have really like big shots. And I was the first black in the Comedy Hall of Fame. I brought in Franklin Ajayi and Robert Townsend. I brought them in. And the guy, so the guy with the Comedy Hall of Fame, like I said, he brought me in. There was a reason I brought that up, and I don't know what it was right now, but whatever. He brought me in to basically talk about the black experience and all that. And so we try to do it with real respect and honor. And like I said, I wish I would remember what I was talking about, because it was leading. What was I talking about?
You were you've forgotten your.
It happens all the time. Yeah, it happens all the time. I riff a lot.
Yeah, you're so good at this too.
Most of my jokes I got from riffing, just like that. I don't really.
You're so good
down and write them.
Well, I tell you, while you're thinking on that, I just want to take the time to thank you, because a lot of the stories that you told, it's that side of comedy we don't see. You know, we see the happy and making us laugh. We're going through so much. The thing with the Black community, like you said, it's hard being Black sometimes. And so you see a lot of people, Black people who love comedy. They love singing. They love dancing, just sometimes to escape the things that we're going through. And so we don't see that side of comedy, that the show must go on. You all still bring it. You all still give us the things that we, you know, that make us laugh, no matter what you all are going through. And that's just extraordinary. I'm thankful to you and every other wonderful comedian who does that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I'm never gonna get that thought again, but I'm thankful for being on the show. No, it's a funny thing about comedy is when they call your name. I've been sick. I've had the flu. I've had hiccups. When they call your name and you grab that microphone, all of that goes out the window. And then when you put the mic back in, you go backstage, you start coughing again, you start hiccuping again. It's happened to me dozens of times. And it is a great healing force, being able to laugh. And we are doing research on it right now, medically, with laugh therapy. I am, me and not a team of doctors, but me and some doctors have talked about it, and we are doing research on laugh therapy, because what we found out is, I did this with both of my daughters. I would tell them my jokes, and the jokes that were funny, they would laugh at. The jokes that weren't, they wouldn't. And I have a typical daughter who is 29 now, and I have a 9-year-old daughter. My typical daughter, I say that because grade honor roll student and all that. My 9-year-old is autistic. She still gets the jokes.
Wow.
So keep laughing, folks. Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, keep laughing. And go to Amazon.com and pick up This Day in Comedy. You will not regret it.
Yes.
At all. You're going to love it. Oh, and one other thing about the book. This is what I wanted to say. I'm sorry. This is what I wanted to say about the book. In the book, it has links. So at the end of each story, you have pictures you probably never seen before. You will read a story you probably never read before. And then it has a link at the end. So if you want to see Kevin Hart, if you want to see Mantan Moore, if you want to see George Lopez or anybody, click the link at the end and you get to see a performance, or see the Jeffersons, or see Good Times, or Mr. T and Tina, whatever.
Wow.
It's all in there. You can see Margaret Cho. You see Maj Brani, Aziz Ansari, and they're all there in the book. And I've never seen that in any book. Ever. No. I've never seen it. And that's why I wanted to do it.
Wow. This book is all
you get more than just a book with pages. The thing about this book, and this is why I'm so excited about this book, anybody that has Kindle, you gotta have this book, because this is the one book that you'll never want to get rid of, ever, because it's got 365 days of comedy. Whenever you feel bad and you say, you know what, I want to laugh at Eddie Murphy. I want to laugh at Charlie Murphy. I want to see an episode of Chappelle. It's right there. It's right there in one goddamn source. I'm so happy with this book. I'm sorry. Okay, I gotta go.
I'm very excited, you know, because this is just going to be perfect. So I'm very excited about it, and I can't wait to get my hands on it. I'm going to pre-order. But
Prince is excited about it too.
I see that. I'm going to comment on your picture. I didn't want to jinx anything.
Yeah, right.
But I just thank you so much. That's what
he listens to everything I say.
I see that. He's making sure you're on track.
Yeah.
But you're just extraordinary. And for those who didn't know him before, I told you he was phenomenal. A legend, iconic. You are just fabulous, sir. You are fabulous. And I'm so proud of you. I wanted to make sure that you had this full time to talk about you, because it's all about you. You've done this a long time, and I'm telling you, I'm so incredibly proud. And this was just your moment. This was just your moment. So thank you for being a part of my show.
To let people know that when people say whatever happened to, now you know.
There it is. Back. You know the whole.
He's back, and he's really ready. Yeah.
Right. He's ready.
Yeah.
Sir, we expect a lot more from you to come. I know that you're not going to stop. You're not going to slow down. You haven't in all these years. And so it's just going to get
we're gonna start doing DMilitants back on I used to do it with Tom Joyner on radio. I'm gonna start doing them on the internet. That's what I was saying about the internet earlier. That's what I want to put out. I'm gonna start doing DMilitants again because there's a lot of stuff going on, and I got kicked off of radio because they said I was empowering Black people. They were going into their jobs and talking shit to their bosses. And they would say, "What's wrong with you, Henderson? DMilitant said, I ain't got to listen to you, white man." And so they kicked me off of radio.
Wow.
For doing that kind of shit. So I'll be on the internet doing that same kind of shit. So
good, because we need it.
Fired, don't blame me. Don't blame me.
Oh, thank you so
Cortina.
much. Yes, sir, absolutely.
I'm gonna go smoke a drink now.
I feel like I should too. I need some therapy. This may help me a lot. You've given us wonderful tips there. So we got our comedy and our tips. You guys, make sure you follow me on What's on Cortina Jackson's Mind if you'd like to be on the show. You can find me. I'm an author of 2 books that you see behind me, On Earth as It Is in Hell, and The Sounds of Silence Are the Loudest. Make sure you follow me on my website at www.cortinajackson.com. I'm excited. I just was picked up for a role. I will play Madame Sommore in Lalaurie Parish. It's going to be a TV series coming up.
Congratulations. All right.
So
congratulations. I don't hate that. Yes. Is great.
And also a stage play.
Deal.
So I will be in Stop Playing with God, and I will play the wife of Satan. So there we go. I'm very excited for some new roles. You can follow me on Facebook, Cortina Jackson. I'm at Twitter at. Still hear me, but you. Okay. I'm on Twitter at Tina the Writer, and I'm also on Instagram at Miss Tina _ the Writer, MISS Tina _ the Writer. Follow me. Get Mr. Littleton's book, Darryl Littleton, DMilitant.
Let's do that.
So thank you all for joining me. Thank you so much, Mr. Littleton. Last words, and in the Church of God in Christ, we say last words and benediction, but we'll just give you the last words. How about that?
Okay, keep laughing and support comedy. I don't care what kind of comedy it is. Support comedy because 100 years ago, the biggest thing in the country was called an organ grinder and a monkey. And they don't have those anymore because the state of New York outlawed organ grinders and monkeys because there were too many of them. They were like beggars on the corner. They said 1 out of every 4 men in New York was had a monkey and was an organ grinder. And that's almost the way it was in comedy. 1 out of every 4 black guys was a stand-up comedian.
Wow.
So support good comedy and support and encourage comics who are really trying to be good comedians. But those who have been doing it for a long time and they still ain't shit, move on. Next, move on, please.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, sir. Thank you. I pray for good things in your life, and yes, you and your family. Bless you.
You too. And thank you for having me. I had a good time.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
All right, take care.
Okay, and we are out.